warp jump.
Exceeding warp 9.
Ejector lock. An emergency saucer separation could rupture the warp flow capacity. Commencing warp engine shutdown.
At warp 6, we should be there at just over 16 hours.
The Jovis has a maximum speed of warp.
All warp engines generate that kind of interference.
A Federation ship approaching at high warp.
Set a course for Xanthrust 3, warp factor 6.
Captain, the ship is traveling at warp 9.
Body is generating an electrical field that's warping.
Mr. Data, how long would it take to get there at warp 9? Approaching at warp 9.3.
And punch it up to warp 9.
The Borg ship is disengaging, leaving at warp speed. Borg vessel has reached warp 9. 9.4, 9.
Commander, if the Borg stay at warp 9...
But Commander, I'm gonna need serious power from the warp.
We'll find a way to get them out of...
We've matched warp velocity for transport, Commander.
If we can't bring them out of warp...
We have only 17 minutes of warp power left. Do whatever you can to get them out of warp.
Sir, they've done it. The Borg ship is dropping out of warp.
They could be capable of warp any minute.
To get back into warp, our weapon is useless.
Ceasefire.
Shutting down warp engines.
Warp reactor core? Repairs are complete and the Enterprise is warp.
The Borg have dropped out of warp.
Mr. LaForge, prepare to go to warp power.
I used to be a warp field specialist.
Warp 4.5. You're clear to increase to warp 7. We can increase speed to warp 9.1, sir. Shouldn't be pushing warp 8 for at least an hour.
Our velocity is holding steady at warp 9.
Captain, holding at warp 9.3.
No control of impulse or warp engines from here.
Aberration.
Sir, we're at warp 9.
The module should fall out of warp within 2 minutes.
Be prepared. The only way we knew we'd come out of warp...
It's 416 at warp 9.
Sir, even at maximum warp...
I want my warp engines back now.
Warp field.
Run a level 2 diagnostic on warp drive systems.
Outside the warp drive. Sinski's warp field equations. This is the static warp field we created inside the warp drive.
I doubt that a warp bubble could... Could this warp bubble be floating about the ship?
About warp bubbles.
Somehow he combined warp technology.
When Beverly Crusher was caught in the static warp bubble,
Estimated time to Tau Alpha C at warp 9.5.
begin entering your warp field equations. It's your warp bubble, Wesley.
The warp bubble is contracting at a rate of 50.
The Traveler used his thoughts to alter warp fields. Now I'm in a warp field. The person is trapped inside of a static warp bubble.
Warp field and the outer environment.
Stable, but we have maintained warp factor 9.
Warp drive containment breach.
Hanson, warp factor 9.3. Warp coils had collapsed.
Emissions of a cloaked warbird even at warp.
Problem.
I've had to shut down the warp.
At warp 1, 3 days. Warp 7. At warp 8. At warp 9.
Places in the Talib Beta system.
Stand ready at warp 6, Ensign.
Nice.
Looks like the field collapsed before we could enter warp. Overload of the warp drive. Jump directly to warp 6. The laws of a
Miss LaForge will attempt your...
controlled overload jump to warp 6.
LaForge, go to warp. Number 1, set a course 130, mark 246. 037, mark 005, warp 4. 125. Speed, warp 2.
The Divorce is dropping out of warp, sir. The weapon...
Warp speed ahead of a Cardassian warship.
Set a course, warp 6.
Present speed of warp 4, 16 hours.
Increase to warp 9. Overtaking.
Captain, the Phoenix has accelerated to warp 9.
And warp 9.
Eyes are... Sir, the Phoenix has dropped out of warp. They have
Impulse engines and warp drive, sir. They appear to be on a...
Can we go to warp?
The warp field generator will be activated. We have the prototype design for the warp engine. It would simply be...
Will proceed as you have outlined, Marasta. I have capability. To initiate warp travel, we feel the time is... The program will have to be delayed.
Magnetic plasma transfer to the warp field generators doesn't correlate.
Forge, prepare to initiate warp drive.
Too much interference to form a warp field.
Initiate warp drive.
Warp engines, factor 1. Engage.
Don't have warp drive either.
Warp 2. Yes, sir.
Commander, warp power has been transferred to the shield grid.
Field generator is a power flow anti-attenuator, and that, of course,
Hanson, stand by for a jump to warp 2.
prize as a function of warp. But
warp the cells.
And in the possible sabotage of our warp drive.
Suppose you know nothing about the explosion that disabled the warp.
Captain, warp engines are back online.
2 now. Warp 9.
Sir,
Associated with warp modulation in order of decreasing energy.
I was reconfiguring the warp field parameters. Analyze...
Warp 1.